Welcome to Dr. K Speaks. I'm Dr. K, and I'm here to help you to navigate through the many challenges in your life's journey so that you might ultimately become the highest version of yourself. Right now, I want to talk about how to stay positive in a negative family. See, when you're working on how to become the highest version of yourself, sometimes you might find yourself being surrounded by negative family members. Now, it's difficult to stay positive when you are surrounded by negative family members in your own household. It's a little easier when you don't live with those family members. And these family members can be parents, grandparents, siblings, cousins, aunts, and uncles. And it doesn't matter how negative they are, even though it can be very, very stressful when you interact with them, you can practice staying positive. And I'm going to teach you how to do that in this video. It's very important to remember that we can't change anybody else. We can only change ourselves. We can't control anybody else. We can only control ourselves. So keeping that in mind is going to be very useful to you. Now I'm going to talk about family gatherings. I've talked to a lot of people who've told me about how family gatherings, whether they are birthday celebrations, holiday celebrations, or funerals, like how stressful those family gatherings can be because of the negative family members that are there. I've heard about family members at family gatherings who just kind of ooze the negativity. And then there are some who just straight out spew venomous negativity. So the ones that ooze negativity, let me share some of these examples. So there's a family gathering, and then there's some cousins or aunts or uncles or whoever it might be that might be giving dirty looks or just kind of whispering to somebody else and looking over at you, and then you kind of get the sense that they're talking about you. Or it could be those family members who make those passive aggressive statements. For example, when you come in, they might say, "Oh, you looking good. You lost some weight now. About time you lost that weight. All right, now go, girl." You know, if they're going to compliment you on your weight loss, maybe they could just say that you're looking good. But then you know that that person had some facetious intent in there, even talking about it. Or maybe a family member might say, "Was that your loud car I heard coming down the street? You need a muffler, but that's all right. At least you made it here." And that comment might not have felt good. So there are some family members who can be really passive aggressive with you and seem to be complimenting you all the while and smiling at you, and at the same time, like punching you in the gut. Now there are those other family members where they just spew negativity. These are the ones who start arguments, might start cussing and fussing, and might even start a physical fight. And I know some of you have heard of somebody who has family members like that, or maybe you have someone like that in your own family, but these are the ones who spew that negativity. So when it's time for those family gatherings, a lot of people experience a lot of anxiety beforehand because you know that that person is going to be there. And sometimes you just don't want to deal with them. And while it is difficult to stay positive in dealing with those negative people, when it comes to those family gatherings, there are some things that you could do differently. Maybe you might want to come early and leave a little early. Or maybe you might want to come a little later and then leave. And then there might be those times where you just opt out of going to the family gathering altogether. You have to do what's in your best interest. You have to do what's healthy for you. And I'm going to say it again, it's so important to remember that we can't change or control anybody else. We can only change and control ourselves. So it'll be important for you to make whatever necessary changes you need to make that's going to be healthy for you. So now I'm going to get into some things that you can do in order to stay positive in the midst of negative family members. I want to start with the mindset first. This is so key. It's important to remember that we all operate from programs, even those negative family members. 95% of the time, they're going to be behaving the same way and they're going to have the same mindset. So if it's certain family members that tend to be on the negative side, you might want to make a mental note of their negative behaviors that they display so that when they start doing it, you're already mentally prepared to be able to deal with that. It's also important for me to note that getting angry with your family members for operating from how their brain is programmed, how their brain is wired, is not going to do you any good. You can't change the way their brain is wired, and we all operate 95% from habits, and those habits are our programs. It's important to note that while those family members who display the negativity can greatly benefit from change, sometimes they don't change. They stay the same, and there's nothing that you can do about that. If you do have a family member who is kind of receptive to your suggestions and your ideas, then by all means try to have a talk with that person, not in the midst of everybody else. Make sure it's a private talk where you can offer some helpful suggestions to maybe help them to deal with situations in a way that's not so volatile. It's also helpful to try to see the good in that family member who's displaying that negativity. They're not all bad. And if you work on trying to see some good in them, then that can help to give you something positive to focus on as it relates to that person, as opposed to you focusing on their negativity and then you end up in a negative space as well. Sometimes you can be drawn into somebody else's negativity by engaging in an argument. It might start out nice, but then that negative person might have a way of baiting you, pointing at your triggers and getting you into the argument. So it's really, really important for you to be mindful of maintaining your positive position when you're interacting with that person. To stay in a positive position when interacting with them doesn't mean that while you're like looking at them, you're smiling and exchanging some pleasantries, but then on the inside of your head, you're saying, he gets on my nerves or she gets on my nerves. I can't stand him, or here she go with that stuff again. Nope, because that's a negative vibe. So what you want to do is maybe have a mantra already set up to tell yourself, which is a short statement, like, I'm going to be okay. Everything is going to be all right. Or let me just stay in my peaceful space. What they're saying doesn't have anything to do with me. Whatever you need to tell yourself in your head, then those are the thoughts that will be good for you to focus on so that you can maintain your positive position. Forgiveness is important. If you've had a negative encounter with one of your family members who tend to be on the negative side, or maybe they did something negative to one of your other family members that you love and you honor, it's going to be important to work on forgiveness for that person, because if you don't forgive them, then you're going to be holding on to some anger and some hostility, and that's not in harmony with you staying positive while dealing with negative family members. I like to think of forgiveness as not something that we do, but something that happens when we understand. When you understand that that person is behaving in the way that they're behaving, perhaps based upon how they grew up, because it's your family, so maybe you know something about the family dynamics, and then you can have some insight into how that person's brain got wired. When you can understand that this person was exposed to this person was exposed to that, and that's why the person is more than likely that way. And I'm not saying that they don't have the ability to change and it's not their responsibility. It is. But in your forgiveness process, that will be something very helpful to you, is just to understand why they are the way they are. Another thing for you to do is to make sure that you focus on the good things in your life, as opposed to focusing a lot on your family members who are displaying the negativity. Now, for some other things that you can do, boundaries are very important. You can create boundaries. You can let your family members know that you're not available for negativity. Say if they gossip, or you might have a family member who engages in a lot of lying about other people or talking about one of the other family members. Whatever that negative act is that they do, you can let them know that you're not available for that. So you can't control them, but you can control yourself. So when you let them know that you don't want to talk about the other person, or you're not wanting to get involved in that situation, if they do it anyway after you've let them know you're not available for that, then give them a warning. You can give a warning in peace and love. I don't want to talk about that. I'm not getting into that. And if they continue to keep up with that negativity, if it's on the telephone, then you could tell them, all right, I got to go now because I'm not doing this. Or if you're face to face with them, then you could tell them, all right, I'm just going to walk away because I told you I don't want anything to do with that. I'm not available for that. I'm trying to maintain my positivity. And then you walk away. See, you can't control them, remember, but you can control yourself. It's also important for you to make sure that you spend time with positive people. Set up your own gatherings and invite some people you know are positive so that you can have some time to sit back, enjoy, relax, and chill with some people who bring a lot of positive energy to you. Something else you can do as it relates to those family members who spew that negativity or ooze the negativity. You can look at them and their behaviors and then ask yourself, do I do any of that? Do I act like that at all? And if you do, then it will be important for you to work on your change. Remember that we all start out as innocent babies. Nobody ever walked up to a newborn baby's crib and looked in at the baby, and then the baby looked up and started cussing them out or yelling at them or throwing fists to fight. No, people learn that kind of stuff. We start out as innocent babies, and then based upon how you're indoctrinated into this system, based upon whatever you were taught by parents, caregivers, things you learned at school, maybe things that you learned from teachers, things that you learned on social media, all of that stuff plays a part in programming your brain. And if you don't practice consciously programming your own brain to move you in the direction of the things that you want, then by default, you'll be programmed by all the things that surround you. Again, while it's really, really challenging to deal with those negative family members and stay positive, you can do it. Practice the strategies that I mentioned or come up with some of your own strategies, but keep practicing the strategies. Apply certain things, and then if it works, you keep doing it because consistency is the key. And as it relates to changing something about your own mindset, you definitely got to have the consistency with that because repetition, when we're trying to change ourselves, is the key. You have to repetitiously work on yourself, and then eventually you will begin to see change. Thank you for listening. And if you've liked this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends and family, and remember to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed yet so that you can be attuned to all of the other videos that I continue to post on how to become the highest version of yourself. Thank you.